Hey guys, Evan Rourke here, back in another video, and today we're going to be doing a review on the Bandai Singular Point Manda figure. Now, this is, I think, the second figure I have in my collection that as of right now is a Singular Point figure. I honestly wasn't a big fan of Godzilla Singular Point. I'm sure I must have mentioned that in my live streams because I never did a thorough review on it. But again, I wasn't a fan of it. The designs, however, I also wasn't a fan of, but there were a few designs that I actually liked, such as the Manda design, and I think the Anguirus design, and maybe a few other ones that I'm not recalling at the moment. But no, this is the Manda Singular Point figure, and if you're wondering why I have the camera tilted down, it's because this isn't a figure that stands upright. This is a figure that, of course, is in a snake dragon-like fashion, so therefore I have to tilt the camera down, obviously. But no, so the first thing I like about this figure, I just want to say, is the detail. Now, the detail on this figure is really, really nicely done. I absolutely love the scales that they've done here. It's a little bit hard with the camera quality, but they've done it throughout the entire lineage, like just the whole line of the figure here. Same goes for the other side. Many little lines here for the underbelly right here. These little scales, really like those details. And of course, even minor little lines here, kind of like near the bottom half of it. And so we have also the fins, not much detail there. Facial detail is really good. Actually, really good. No, but it is actually pretty good. The teeth are nicely done. Very small, but still nice detail. It shows that they really worked hard on it. Scales on the face too. That also shows they worked really hard on it. The eyes are alright. I also like the horns here, as well as the detail on the white, I don't want to call them spines because they're not really spines, but the white tracing that goes across the spinal cord of the figure. So let's get on to the cons of this figure. Now, I know this may come as a shock to you because you're probably all expecting the paint job and the articulation to be in the pro category, but because they are slightly below average, again, not above average by a slight margin is what I tend to always say, slightly below average, it's because of that reason that they are technically cons, but they're still not major cons. The paint job and the articulation are, I like to say, a mix of major cons and nitpicks, but the real major con, and I'm going to get into that right now, is the fact that this figure is made into a single form. What I mean by that is it's pretty much a long stick. When you look at different variations of Manda, especially the YMSF Manda, which I don't have in my collection, and I hope one day I can soon get, maybe this year as a matter of fact, I'm not too sure, at least that is in a form where the, I guess, for instance, the end part of the tail might be to the left or to the right. This is just in one long line. And if you were to have it at eye level, I get that there are curves here, like you can see these little curves, but they're very slight and not really noticeable, especially if you're filming from the angle that I'm filming this review in, where it's below. It looks like a long stick in this case. You don't necessarily can see the curves, maybe a little bit here, but if you were to do it like here, it's hard to notice. You'd think it's a long stick. And I think that is honestly a problem. I think that the vinyl formation of the figure should have a curve where maybe like the YMSF Manda, again, it's kind of like in a swirl, and then the head comes out of the swirl to make a straight formation. This is one long straight formation. They should have had maybe this part like risen up, more like kind of like a serpent, or have this part kind of like twisted over, curled around. Instead, it's one long stick. That's what I'm going to compare it to all day in this review. But that's really what it is, and it's really unfortunate because I think they could have done a lot more with it. I think Bandai was very lazy when it came to the formation of this figure. But as per the smaller cons, again, the cons by that I mean the articulation, the paint job, they are a mix of major cons and nitpicks. So the next biggest con, technically the next biggest con, is the articulation. Now, I've always said, especially in my more recent reviews, that Bandai figures like this one should have at least 4 joints of articulation, at least. This has 3. And I would give it the benefit of the doubt that it's a long snake, and because of that reason, you don't really have much opportunity to give it many joints of articulation. But still, they could have still done more with it, I think. So the 3 joints are here. You have one here, right? One here, and by the head, which by the way is a little bit stiff. And so yeah, I'm not going to give that as its own con though, because you can technically move it. It's not as stiff as I think a real stiff con should be. But no, it still has 3 joints of articulation. And again, if you're asking, well, that's as much as they could do with this kind of a figure. Where would they put any other joints of articulation? They could have put some right here with the arms. They could have made the arms. I don't even care. They didn't even have to go 360 with it. If they just made the arms go a little bit over, a little bit, just a little bit, it would have been cool. I also think they could have met in the middle of one of the articulated joints, like in the middle here, in the middle here, in the middle here. So that way you could do so many different positions with it, because this is putting it at a limited standpoint. So because it has 3 joints of articulation, I technically consider this to be slightly below average. Now for the con that is especially slightly below average, to the point where it is a nitpick, is the paint job, because the paint job is actually very nice on this figure. You have very nice blue colors here, and then not booming. None of the colors here are really that booming, unless you technically want to count the silver. I guess you could count that as booming colors. The blue isn't booming, but it still is a very, very nice blue. It's very nice, and it comes out really nicely. It stands out really nicely. My biggest problem with the paint job is that there's no shading whatsoever with the underbelly and with these purple scalings here. None. It's just a boom, like a straight new color right here, and then boom, straight new color right here. You'd think it's a different figure if you were to flip it this way, and then take one picture here, and then take another picture here. Completely, it looks like a completely different figure. So the shading is not good, because there even is no shading. There's none. Maybe at the slightest bit around the edges here, but that's nothing at all. And that's kind of just because they maybe accidentally, I don't know how they do this, either they actually paint it or spray paint it, but that doesn't even count as a shade. What they really needed to do was had a little bit of this be purple, a nice, so it connects here. I don't know if they're trying to be design accurate, but even if it wasn't design accurate, it still makes sense to do that. It looks like a completely different contrast color, so I don't like that. And there are, it's really hard to tell, but there are minor paint scuffs around the face, but those are so not noticeable, maybe 1 or 2, and no Bandai figure is perfect when it comes to paint scuffs, none. So it is what it is, and I actually think it could have done a lot better with that. But again, if they're being design accurate, which I think they are, that's how all figure companies should operate, by being design accurate, then I can't really judge the shading. But I do think there should be some element of shading more so than what this is. This is not really acceptable in my opinion. Anyway, I would rate this figure an 8.3 out of 10. If you watch Godzilla Singular Point and didn't enjoy it, but at least enjoy the figures like me, I still recommend you get this. It is a very nice figure. 8.3 out of 10 is a pretty good rate as well, in my opinion at least. Maybe not as much as the other figures I've reviewed, but for a first Manda figure, this is my first Manda figure in my collection. It really isn't that bad. It's really quite nice. So I completely recommend it. Hope you enjoyed this review, guys. Like, comment, subscribe. See you guys later, and bye-bye.